Hello students, welcome to the 9th standard English session. Today we are going to learn Unit 7 Supplementary. The topic of the lesson, the Christmas Truce written by Aaron Shepard. Come let's see the lesson, the Christmas Truce by Aaron Shepard. Let's see about the author. Aaron Shepard was born on October 7, 1950. He was a professional storyteller. He was also worked as a publisher, journalist, computer programmer, musician, instrument maker, and also as a salesman. He is an award-winning author of the famous books Savitri, A Tale of Ancient India. His specialty is retelling folk tales and other traditional literature from around the world. The lesson, The Christmas Truce, is a letter written by a British soldier during the time of World War I to his sister, named called Janet. He tells that what happens on the Christmas Eve night 1914. The day was Christmas Eve and the weather was the perfect Christmas weather. Everywhere the land was covered with white frost. So far, there was rain for many days, and now the snowfall had started to fall. The time was 2 a.m. in the morning. Most of the British soldiers were asleep in their dugouts. The British soldiers had to stay in the trenches and to see there were any attack from the German side. The trenches were already dapped with rainwater, and the water was bailed out from the trenches with the help of pans and pots. Tom writes this letter from the battlefield of France. He writes this letter to his sister who is in Britain, named Janet. They had stayed in long, narrow ditches. The German troops were only 50 yards from the British troop, and between them there was a land called No Man's Land, and it was bordered by barbed wire on all sides. On Christmas Eve, the shooting was stopped. There was complete silence. It was a first silence after many months. Tom was lying on his couch in the dugout to rest. He was almost asleep. Suddenly, his friend John was shaking him to get up to see what the Germans were doing, and Tom thought they were coming to fight. He took his rifle and ran to the border to see what were Germans' troops. There he could see clusters of tiny lights shining all along the German border because they had placed Christmas trees in front of their trenches, and the Christmas tree were decorated by candles, lanterns like beacons of goodwill. It was a strange and lovely sight. Now both the troops were ready to get together to celebrate the Christmas. Suddenly the German soldier called the British troops to come over the crossed wire to celebrate the Christmas. And they were all greeting to join together. The captains of both the troops were agreed to start shooting till the next day midnight. So they gathered all together on the no man's land, and a bonfire was built there. Very soon, over hundreds of soldiers were crossed the barbed wire and were in the no man's land by the sentries were asked to remain in their position. To have a god over the borderline, and they were came together, they were starting to share their joy and greeted each other. Tom could find The Germans were neatly dressed in their new grey uniforms, but they were all wearing Britishers were wearing a dirty cocky uniforms. When both the troops came together on the no man's land, they started singing Christmas hymns like Silent Night and O Come All Ye Faithful, and many more songs in both German and English language. And very soon they started to exchange gifts like tea for coffee, badges, buttons from the uniforms, spiked helmets, jackknife for leather belts, and they also exchanged food as a token of love for Christmas. They do not have any gift to give each other, but they had a heart. They wanted to give each other, so they exchanged with whatever things they had. And they also give their home address, so they come and meet them at home, or even meet their family members in their town. And they were all happy in singing Christmas around the bonfire in no man's land. The Christmas celebration was prevailing with joy everywhere. When all started to go back to their trenches, suddenly an older German soldier clutched Tom's hand and said, "Why can't we have peace?" Tom replied that they must ask their emperor. But the German soldier thought for a while, asked him that we must also ask in our own hearts. This made Tom really a touching. It was a heart-rending incident for Tom. Both the troops celebrated Christmas in the midst of war. What the old German said was really a heart touching moment for Tom, and even he thought that if the leaders were offer good wishes in the place of warnings, songs in the place of incense, gift in place of reprises, there would not be any war in all the war in around the world would come to an end. All nations say that they want to be peace. So, my dear students, instead of having war, we can also have a peace rather than making war or a small fight. Just have a small hug or kind word can change this war, because war is a cowardly escape from the problems of peace. If you want to end war, then instead of sending guns, send books. Instead of sending tanks, send pens. Instead of sending soldiers, send teachers. So, my dear children, I hope you understood the lesson. So, that's the end of the lesson, children. Thank you, students. Have a nice day.